I'm here together with my colleagues Angel, who is taking this photo here, and Eva at the end to help me to prepare the whole this thing. I was invited today to share with you an idea which is really worth spreading. This is namely the solution to the question how to achieve national happiness. And we shall use a toolbox of, with 3 skills: calculating, voting, and flying. But to kick off, tell me how many of you are happy with your government? Please raise your hands. I'm not going to report back. No, that's raised. Well, this is the perfect audience for my talk today. First, let me tell you my story. I was born here in Bulgaria because of a miracle. And miracle was that Bulgaria succeeded to save the Bulgarian Jews during the Second World War. Actually, not all of them were saved. You see here a small boy. He was a student in France during the war, where he was captured by the Nazis, sent to concentration camp and killed. He was my cousin. And during the Nazi time, we had the worst governance in Europe. The only indicator for happiness was to be killed or to be alive. In my childhood, I believed that happiness is a woman. Actually, many people still believe this. More precisely, I believe that this woman was my mother. And because my father was a university professor, I believed that all happiness goes with university professors. And that's why from very early childhood I wanted to become a university professor. But the big question of my early childhood was, professor in what? My first inclination was physics. Maybe because my family believed that the greatest mind ever was Albert Einstein. My grandma would would say, I'm ready to vote for E equals mc squared. And if you ask her, well, I'm ready to prove this. No, I cannot prove this, but I know that Einstein is Jewish. Since then, I understood that voting is a matter of religion. Finally, I decided to go for mathematics. I majored in computer sciences and logic, and logic and computer sciences are capable to transform everything into a number, and respectively to reduce every dispute into comparison of numbers. So it is very easy from the mathematical point of view to test, to check who is right, who is wrong. You just compare 2 numbers, which is bigger, which is smaller. My job was to upgrade computers, but to discover that the computer can calculate everything that man can was a big damage to my ego. A heap of metal and to be smarter than me was, so to say, a shock. And that's why I decided to leave the computers into the hands of people of smaller ego and go to upgrade myself. The people with smaller ego, like Bill Gates, who succeeded to bring the computer into our home, Steve Jobs, who succeeded to bring the computer into our pocket, or Elon Musk, who is currently implanting the computer into our brains, which I believe is a very good idea because many more people will start thinking. So, and I respectively decided to upgrade myself instead of computers. During the communist period, I was allowed to compute, but I was not allowed to vote. And voting is a decision-making method which was invented 27 centuries ago. So I decided that I must try voting. During, in the 80s, I was very much anti-establishment, hippie, long hair, long beard, make love, not war. This was the log of my generation. And this anti-establishment nature brought me to politics. Politics brought me to parliament. And inside the Bulgarian parliament, I proposed Bulgaria to quit the Warsaw Pact, which was the military organization of the Soviet Union, and to join NATO and the European Union, which became my political dream, my dream. The materialization of this dream came as a result of another miracle, possible probably only in Bulgaria. The Bulgarian king, who was living for 50 years in exile, Simeon II, decided to return to Bulgaria to form a political party. He won the elections and invited me to be his foreign minister. He gave me my job description in the following way: Solomon, your duty will be to fulfill your dream. I want Bulgaria in NATO and the European Union. Okay, Your Majesty, point well taken. And the award for mission accomplished was a hug. But not a simple hug, it was a royal hug. Well, when you fulfill your dream, you lose the dream. But this is possibly the only loss which brings you to happiness. And this is the result of the happiness. My greatest disappointment, however, after 10 years in active politics and governance, my greatest disappointment was that democracy is, in its original form, invented 27 centuries ago. Democracy counts votes, not consequences. Exactly as in ancient Greece. In ancient Greece, they even were counting stones. Today, we count ballots, not consequences. And this is why this was such a disappointment for me. Because elections depend on religion, as I told in the beginning. Remember my grandma. They depend on prejudice and dogmatism. This is when opinion prevails over facts. And they depend also on weather. In my constituency, in Burgas region at the Black Sea, very frequently people were not voting when it was chilly and rainy because they wanted to stay at home. Other people did not want to vote when it was sunny because they wanted to go to the beach. So the weather is an argument in the decision-making process of voting. So the voting is as reliable as flipping a coin, rolling the dice, or gambling. Random facts, random circumstances shape the result of the elections. This easily leads democracy to auto-destruction, as it happens, for example, in 1933, when Hitler came to power in a very democratic way by elections. My friends used to tell me, calm down, this is not a big problem. Even Winston Churchill noticed this, and he said that democracy is imperfect, it is terrible, but the best among existing forms of governance. I did not want to buy this, and I did not want to buy the idea that democracy is post-truth, what was the word of 2016, and that democracy cannot be perfect. That's why I myself decided to try something which is perfect or close to perfect. I tried one of the most perfect human activities ever. I tried flying. This is me on board F-16 experiencing the 9G environment and the excellence of this machine. Flying is perfect because it relies on a perfect navigator. And the perfect navigator, this is the computer. Flying relies on computer. It relies on autopilot, which calculates consequences and chooses the best among them. It never repeats the same mistake, opposite to governance and to governments who repeat the same mistake, and new mistake, and new mistakes. Maybe some of you have seen the series of National Geographic about the investigation of air crashes. Have you seen this? Okay, I very much advise you to watch National Geographic. You will see there why in the air they never repeat the same mistake. When there is an accident in the air, they make an investigation and ask all the reasons which are bringing to this crash. So it never repeats again. Actually, flying is not perfect because this is the second greatest thrill known to man. This is the second greatest thrill known to man. But it is perfect because landing is the first. Flying is about landing. Flying is about landing. In all of my incarnations, computing, voting, flying, marrying, just twice, I always ask myself, what is happiness? What is happiness? I visited people of great wisdom asking, begging for their wisdom on answering the question, what is happiness? I met with Henry Kissinger, with the Dalai Lama of Tibet, Shimon Peres, all of them Nobel Prize winners. I met with Pope John Paul II, who is even more than that. He is today Saint Pope John II, asking what is happiness. I went to Bhutan, which is the country of happiness. They have Institute of Happiness, Index of Happiness, Ministry of Happiness. This is me with the Minister of Happiness. And I'm not joking. Minister of Happiness of Bhutan. Asking everywhere, what is happiness, what is happiness, what's happiness? And Bhutan has the resolution on happiness, which was passed to the United Nations. What is happiness, what is happiness, what is happiness? The answer to which I arrived at the end of the day was shockingly simple. That happiness is a number. And you will ask me what number. You will, no, not 40. You will ask me what number. According to the UNDP 2016 report, the happiest country in the world is Norway, with index of happiness 9.5. The least happy country in the world is the Central African Republic, with 3.5. In between, we have Bulgaria with 7.9, France with 8.9, and because I was very diplomatic not to take what is the happiness in the United States today. And I will not share with you the idea how the boring formula which brings us to this number. There is a formula. It's not a difficult formula, but boring for people who are not dealing with mathematics. That's why I'm not going to discuss the formula, but we can discuss how to maximize this number. Because the ultimate aim of any governance is to elevate this number. Never mind for Central African Republic, for the United States, Bulgaria, France, or Norway, each government must elevate this, this number up. How to improve this number? The answer to this question is how to improve the navigator which is leading to this number. And what is the navigator which is leading to this number? The navigator is the governance of the country. So we have to solve to answer to the question how to improve the governance of the country. Relatively easy. relatively easy if we just make one very simple observation. The simple observation is that governance and piloting are identical mathematical problems. They're identical not only visually, but they're identical mathematically. Because in both cases, we decide upon optimal distribution of resources. In the case of piloting, this is the resources are fuel, cargo, time. You have to take the plane with a minimal fuel to a maximal distance for the shortest possible time. This is optimization. In the case of governance, you solve similar problem, optimizing between budget, pension, taxes, healthcare, etc., etc., etc. This is another optimizational problem. And both of them are mathematically identical. This is the optimizational problem. Now we see two identical problems. The piloting, which has perfect navigator and is relatively perfect human activity, and governance of a country, which is gambling, flipping a coin or rolling the dice. What can we do in order to improve the second? Let us change the navigator. Let's take out rolling the dice, the coin and the dice, and put instead of this the computer. And this is our wow solution. This is something like brain with joystick. This is a computer game. This is a simulator, if you wish, which tests the leaders and chooses the best. Exactly in the same way in which you test the pilots and choose the best for flying the plane. Do you know the name of the pilot? Do you remember the name of the pilot who brought you to Bulgaria? No, you don't need it. We're dreaming of the day when we shall not know the name of our president. This will be the happiest day of democracy. We shall not know our president, and he will be driving the country in exactly the same smooth way in which the pilot is piloting the plane. Because the two problems are identical. This is optimizational problem, which is not a difficult problem to be solved by a mathematician. The computer is calculating consequences in 5, 10, or 15 years from today, and it will make the best and most informed choice. This is a big data analytics. Indeed, brain with a joystick, perfect for gamers. It is like entry test for everybody who wants to drive the country. It serves like autopilot, which can drive the country alone. It serves like lie detector, because it can easily detect who of those who are running for office is lying. It invites everybody to test. This is all inclusive. This is all inclusive. Everybody is eligible to try to test, to govern the country, to sit on the autopilot. I have been on autopilot of F-35. Everybody is permitting in Washington, not in the Lockheed Martin premises in Maryland. They allow me to sit there, and after 3 minutes, or no, 30 seconds, I immediately crashed the airplane. So they permit me to try, but on the tester, they don't permit me to sit on the machine before having my license. It invites everybody to test. Each of us can sit down, but admits only the best. The I-democracy is license for governance. License for governance. What is the biggest difference between 27 centuries ago, when democracy was invented, and today, 2017? The big difference is the phenomenal memory and phenomenal speed and the big data which we have on our computers. This is the biggest difference which can improve democracy. Time and technology are moving ahead, and democracy is lagging behind, lagging behind, lagging behind, frozen 27 centuries ago. The good news is that what I'm talking to you is not utopia. It already exists. This is the Watson IBM supercomputer, which is such big data analytics, or the self-driving vehicles of Tesla, for which Elon Musk says, when one car learns something, the whole fleet of cars learns the same thing. This is a dream for governing the country. Can you imagine, when one country makes one mistake, all countries learn from this mistake and never repeat it. This will be a phenomenal improvement of governance. Let's try to make now an experiment with you. Suppose all of us are passengers in this airplane, 10,000 meters above the ground altitude, and suppose that our pilot is out of a sudden incapacitated. And suppose also that according to the international aviation authorities, we have to make elections, to choose the next pilot by elections. We have to elect into alphabetical order between the volunteers for this. And the rule is the following, that if the first guy gets 50% of our votes, he takes the drive. If not, automatically the second guy becomes the pilot of the plane. And we have only 5 seconds for our voting. Why 5 seconds? Because on the 6th second we shall be in trouble. And suppose we have 2 volunteers. These are Mr. Bump and Mr. Fulbright. to my taste, Mr. Bump is a little bit bumpy, but you will decide. So, who will be voting for Mr. Bump to drive our plane? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Less than 50%. So, according to our rule, immediately the second guy takes the plane, takes the leadership. He becomes our pilot. And what happens? Wrong vote. Wrong vote. We choose poorly. Why? Because we did not have information. Mr. Bump is F-35 pilot, high-ranking gamer. We even didn't read what was written on his t-shirt. Eat, sleep, game, repeat. This is the logo of the gamers. And in the same time, Mr. Fulbright, nice-looking guy, is interning flight attendant. He can serve you Coca-Cola on the plane. This is the result of the voting. Emotions. This one is clumsy, this one is nice-looking, and this is the way in which we're making our decision when going to cast the ballot for the elections. The I-democracy will fix the greatest paradox of democracy. And the greatest paradox of democracy is that for all of these vehicles, rocket, ship, plane, train, car, bike, you need license. License to drive. The only 2 things that you do not need license to drive are bicycle and your country. The only 2 things that could be driven by anybody. So, the I-democracy will solve this paradox. The whole of this concept came to my mind for the first time in 2007 when I was in China, more precisely in Tibet, in Lhasa. And I was talking to a Chinese friend of mine, asking him, look, you have good economy going up. Why don't you add some democracy to it, some elections? He fingered to a guy who was cleaning the museum in Lhasa, and he told me, do you see this guy? he was dressed in a Maoist uniform. The Maoists, these are the hardline communists. Maybe you don't, most of you do not remember Mao, but my generation remembers him. And he said, do you see this guy? This guy is a Maoist. If we have elections, free elections tomorrow, these guys will immediately take over than 50% and will, on the next day, we shall ruin both democracy and economy. So we should lose both. That's why I started thinking, and together with my team, how we can propose a solution which can work perfectly well in China, in the United States, in Europe, in university campus, as for example, Facebook started in a university campus. We can start applying this method in a university campus. And we came to the concept of the I-democracy. Today, 10 years later, we are more and more convinced that this is the future of democracy. This is, education is the future of democracy. We are proposing informed choice. I-democracy will disrupt traditional elections by education. So, fasten your seatbelts. May the happiness be with you. Coming soon. If you have any questions, I'm at your disposal. If you want to practice I-democracy, I'll be ready to join you. My colleagues and I are at your disposal to upgrade the concept, so any critical remarks would be appreciated. 1, 2.
So this is very interesting. It sounds somewhat idyllic, and all programs are created by humans, so there will be human error. I'm just curious how that factors into I-democracy.
Human errors. As I told you, the two processes, piloting and governing a country, are identical. In the same way in which you can have human error in the program to fly the autopilot, in the same way you can have human error down on, in governing the country. In the same way in which you oust the first error, you will oust the second error. Keep always in mind that the two processes are identical. If you have solution for the one, you immediately have the projection of this solution to the other.
How do you, I might have missed it, but how do you define democracy?
How do I
define democracy? I must have missed it. I don't know, I'm not sure if you...
I do not give definition to democracy.
Okay, all right. Good to know.
As I don't give you can deal with some concepts without giving definition, formal definition. For example, I cannot give good definition of humans, but we deal with humans every day.
I'm wondering what the test might look like to get the license.
Pardon me?
I'm wondering what the test might be like to get the license for a government, like what types of skills would be assessed in order to determine who could be in government or not.
Well, this is a simulator. The simulator is simulating governing a country. You can have 1, 2, 3, 5 test cases.
Okay.
You sit there. You can be alone. You can be with your team, which means your government. You can be with as many assistants as you wish, or you can stay at home and play with the joystick. And you're solving problems. In the same way in which you solve problems for the airplane, in the same way you solve problems for theoretical problems on your tester, on your autopilot for governing the country. No difference.
But who makes the test, right? I mean, would that be a problem? Like, I get that, like, we have this test and then you have the simulator, but is the computer, I mean, humans are still using the computer to make the test. So let's say you have some people that get together that make the test for great governance, but they are not necessarily making the right decisions for what a great democracy for the people would be. Does that make sense? Like, there seems like there's something that maybe I'm just a skeptic in the sense that I worry about the people that are creating these tests maybe could be corrupt, and then all of the decisions that are being made are leading us to not good governance, but to poor governance. Does that make sense?
As I told you, the two problems are identical. The people you say who are making the tests for governing the country could be corrupt in the same way in which the people who are making the test for F-35 or for Boeing could be corrupt. You can always say, well, I'm very much afraid that my program for running the plane will be corrupted by Osama bin Laden, for example. We have people who are making the wrong use of the airplanes. That's correct. But our system, our society, has measures on how to prevent ourselves. There is an ancient rule coming from the Roman law which says that misuse shouldn't prevent the use. Everything could have wrong usage. Everything. The knife can have very, very wrong use, but nevertheless you buy a knife and you cut your bread off.
Yeah.
So you
Okay, I
think
see that. But you were saying that, like with the pilot and the test pilot, that every time there's a mistake that's made with computers, that there's this self-correction, which I absolutely agree with it. There are programs that basically self-correct because I'm not very good at the computer and it tells me constantly, no, stop doing that. I'm like, oh, okay, stop doing that. But I guess I'm still missing, I'm trying to make that connection that with that piloting, that's true, but if there's a corruption within the system of creation of the testing and the skill set that you're requiring, then would they be able to self-correct because there's a corruption at the beginning?
It is exactly the same as with the planes.
But the planes have like a dire consequence. You don't want to die.
You can have corruption from the very beginning. But nevertheless, this is the most perfect human activity. It was compromised on 9/11. It was severely compromised by a number of acts. And what happened after 9/11? The United States and the rest of the world undertook new measures on how this not to happen again. These guys will try to make a virus to enter our computerized systems for the RVD, how to say RVD?
Air control.
Air control. They're trying every day to make the virus to enter the air control system and to use all the 10,000 or 15,000 planes which we have today. At this moment we have more than 10,000 planes in the sky. And these guys are trying every single minute to use each of these planes like bomb. They want to compromise it. But we are stronger at this moment. That's why the same is with the governing of the country. It is mathematically absolutely identical problem. The optimizational problem which has formulas behind itself. The only thing, however, which is different, which will be different from country to country, or from because this concept works equally well for the country, for the constituency, for a small village, for a big town, for a university. The big difference, wow. Ivan, it is corrupt. You see, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Now we have to improve it. You always have a friend to help you. No nas числата. Графиката Франция и
co-pilot.
Yes, you have co-pilot. This is this is not the solution. Thank you very much. This. The moment in which you will vary from country to country and from constituency to constituency, this will be the definition of happiness. I didn't elaborate on the formula which stays behind this number, but this formula will have one shape in Bhutan, another shape in the United States, and third shape in Bulgaria. Because there are different things which we believe that are important and different things that we believe that are shaping our happiness. In Bhutan, for example, the people believe that they're happy when they have income $10,000 and above, and happiness is not related to anything above this amount of money. So as soon as they guarantee this minimum existence minimum, the happiness is after that formed by other things. While in other countries they believe that happiness is much more environment, other people will say that happiness is much more culture, other people will have, for me, this is more important. This is where the local constituency or the respective nation is making the decision. Otherwise, everything else is mathematically identical. This is the optimizational problem, how to elevate, to maximize or to optimize this number. The big problem here is the following. You have different indicators which are put in this number. For example, you have here pensions and you have inflation. And you can decide, the government can decide, okay, tomorrow we increase the pensions. Okay, this is good because this will improve the index of happiness of the respective nation, but this will be for a very short time because the money will finish, and after that you will enter the country into a spiral inflation, which will immediately decrease the level of happiness, will decrease this number. That's why you have always to optimize between how to little by little increase the positive indicators, so not to increase the negative indicators. This is the essence of the optimization.
I have a question. So, hypothetically, you have two people, and they both have to take this test, and they both score the same in someone's governance. Does the vote of the people then come into play in terms of them being educated about both of these people would be equally qualified? I mean, where do you see the human factor of the populace? Because in the United States right now, one thing that has been a positive, I think, of the last election is a lot of the complacency has gone away from people, and they're trying to educate themselves about the process more than they had in the past, and I see that as a positive thing. So where's, at the end of the line, once they pass the test, is there a human element to this? You said,
Once they pass the test, it is exactly the same as flying the plane.
we're gonna vote.
You permit the pilot to drive the plane only for 8 hours, because after 8 hours he becomes too tired. He has to be in shape. The human factor is not coming to judge between two equals, because you can have so many tests that at the end of the day you can always prove that someone is good, is better, someone is worse. Moreover, someone can be good in one thing, someone else in other things. One could be relatively good in governing agriculture, the other could be relatively good in governing other things. So you can, that's why you will need to make teams teens. The human factor comes first because everybody is invited to test. You can train, this will be a game, and every gamer, every child will be eligible to try play this game at home. There will be competitions between people who are playing this game. And the gamers will be those who will be running the countries. Exactly in the same way in which we are expecting gamers to take the job of military pilots. We're going little by little to unmanned flying, and not only civilian but military planes will be unmanned in future. There will be something like drones, and you can drive these drones with your brain with joystick from your house or from the military camp or from wherever you are.
I have a question. So basically, you suggest meritocracy, but also, as our colleague asked, where is the voting? So, is there? You just suggest that we abolish voting, or could we use the pool of all these trained people as a pool of candidates that those who do not want to participate in those games would probably vote for after they have their license and after they are qualified. So you keep the licensing process, but you also keep the voting process.
The voting process is hidden into choosing the direction, into formulating what you believe is happiness. This is the same like in piloting. The voting is in choosing the destination. You decide whether you want to go to New York, or you want to Paris, or you want to go to China, or to Beijing. This is the place where you make your decision. And then you put yourselves in the hands of the pilot. The pilot will be taking you to New York, or to Beijing, or to Paris. But you choose the destination. This is number one. And number two, you yourself are eligible to try to pilot your plane and go to the tester and do it better than your pilot. You are formulating what is happiness for you.
I'm wondering if this would be something that would be done on a global level, the test, or if it would still be like in a nation state, or if it would be based on a community thing.
It could be on any level of governance. It could be university campus, it could be constituency, it could be village, it could be city, it could be country, it will be union of countries, it would be the world.
So would you need a different license for like international councils than for your country, since they might have different values?
Absolutely, absolutely. You have different licenses even for the cars. I myself have ceiling up to truck, but other people can drive trucks with 3, 4, 5 remarque axes. Yeah. So it depends.
So I'm thinking, at any level, the human decision is imperfect. It's impacted by those religious factors, and it's flawed. Whether it be at the voting level, the deciding on happiness, or deciding on destination.
Pardon me?
Like if we're deciding on the destination, our decision on the destination is still irrational.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's any human involvement, does that ultimately corrupt the whole system?
Well, this
Because
is
it's like even my decision on where to go is still based on it's still rational. Like, so this idea that people are voting at some point to decide the direction, that direction is corrupt.
The people are deciding the direction. The people are deciding the direction. For example, the people would vote in their constituency that they want the social care to be invested much more in older people than in education. This is your image for happiness. Your image for happiness, the older people to be well taken care of. Okay, if you want this, then we are preparing our formula, and our formula will be after that guaranteed by our computer.
But will we be any happier because we're still wrong?
Wow.
Because, you know, vote, like choosing on, okay, I want Trump or I want healthcare. I'm still flawed in my ability to make a choice.
The computer can tell you, is your thinking wishful thinking or realistic thinking? The computer can easily tell you, because I can sit on the tester of the airplane and I can say, okay, I want to go from Sofia to New York for 2 hours, and I will do this, I will tell you will see now how I'm going to do this, but this is a wishful thinking. Obviously, if I'm driving in this way, something will happen wrong. And the computer will tell me, no, no, this is not a realistic goal. You cannot achieve this. That's why I told you that this is, among other things, a lie detector. If I promise you to take you for 2 hours from here to New York, this will be a lie. And my computer will tell you, you cannot do this.
What does this look like? Like, if you actually apply it and you create this whole system, like,
It's the beta test.
yeah, like, is there just a room filled with computers? Is it like, here, download this onto your computer and play a
No,
government game? I don't.
This will be something like this. USB.
Oh, okay.
You'll put it in the computer and you'll bet. This will be exactly the same thing, exactly the same barrel, exactly the same disk or whatever, on which you have any computer game.
Okay.
Any computer game.
I may just be very naive, but as you're talking about this, I picture my 9-year-old grandson who plays Clash of Clans, or I think of the Sims games, and it's, you know, they're building their own communities and territories and interacting with other people, and that's what I'm envisioning you saying, is that these would be computer games, but they would have real world consequences and you would measure, you know, based on how well you were able to build your civilization and maintain it and provide for your, you know, people and your created community would determine the levels in this licensing process.
What your children or grandchildren are playing is exactly the prototype of high democracy.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. I just was like,
So you're in the good hands of your grandchildren.
yay!
Just a second, let's try start with people who haven't raised their hands. You, after that, you and you.
How do you mitigate all of this with the idea that there are people who don't have access to computers or cell phones and who wouldn't be able to play this government, you know, simulation game? How does that come into play? Because then you're kind of excluding certain populations or certain areas of the world where they can't try this.
They can what?
They don't have.
They don't have access.
They don't have access.
Yeah, they don't have access to the technology, or they don't have internet, or they can't afford it.
And you want them to...
Well, then how do they have a chance
How
to
do they participate?
To participate, yeah.
Okay, you have game center,
Mm-hmm.
you have internet cafe, you will have game cafe, you will go to the game cafe on the corner and you will try it. And I can give you a very good example. One of the big companies, I do not remember, was it Microsoft or Google, put excellent computer, shock-proof computer in some of the South African ghettos, where the children did not have original access to any technology. And in France, you know the story.
I know the story.
Okay, please, you tell the story.
Well, they didn't even know the language, and they would just come like it was a strange being and play with it, and in a very short amount of time, they were just doing amazing things on the computer. Very short amount of time, figuring it out.
There is plenty of computers to give to people who don't actually have access.
Do you think that, I was thinking when you were talking that there are a lot of science fiction films that talk about, like I was thinking about like Gattaca or some of these other films that, where it creates this very rigid, hierarchical social stratification, that you have these elites that are capable of passing these tests and doing well, and then there's, and great, the thing is everyone has access, but, you know, that once you don't get the, you know, you're not capable of doing the high level achievement, I don't know, I guess I'm just thinking about, like, does this create a really rigid hierarchy within your society based on intellectual identity as opposed to, like, finance or some other way, or is that okay? I mean, that doesn't seem like that's gonna make my happiness index higher, per se.
Well, it is exactly as the piloting. You can have license for agricultural airplane. Is this the good expression, agricultural airplane, the one which is spreading
Crop duster.
pesticide?
Crop duster.
Yes.
Crop duster.
Crop?
Crop
duster.
Duster.
Crop duster. Okay, crop duster. You can have a license for crop duster, and you can have a license for a shuttle. You go to the moon. This is a hierarchy. Of course it is a hierarchy, but the guy who, if I want to go to the moon, I would ask the one with license to take me to the moon, not the one with a crop
Duster.
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 I have to put this word in my vocabulary. Crop duster. I learned. David?
Matt, let me ask you a question because you, first of all, thank you very much. This has been extremely interesting as well as entertaining. And so I guess my question is, as you roll out the beta, and you were talking about started at a college campus, work up, or you could roll it out in a variety of different levels of organization. Let's take the substance of your conversation and go to the beginning of your conversation. So the I-democracy is rolled out in 1933 Germany. And the people select as their definition of happiness, genocide, conquest, and Adolf Hitler is the most qualified licensed individual. Now, we could argue that the peoples who are recognized as German citizens would immediately see their happiness index shoot up to 9.999. But the consequence of that, first, to them, as you said, there's always this imbalance, right? Raise the minimum wage to $50 an hour, suddenly inflation flies through the roof, your happiness goes up, and then it hits the ground. They themselves saw, August 1945, their happiness was virtually non-existent, and their neighboring countries, also for a very long period of time, were below the Central African Republic in terms of happiness index. So these extreme introductions of human emotion, hopefully there's a check and balance, right? The Soviet Union, the United States, the United Kingdom all said, well, you know what would make us happy? To destroy these people. And they voted that way with their feet, with their lives, etc. But this could entail massive system failures before these autocorrections occur. And it's not entirely clear how that becomes wholly eliminated from the system.
Well, now we're at the phase of this theory of your grandson. You're starting to building empires without taking into account politics. Of course, some people can say my image of I imagine the happiness as a suicide. I want to blow myself on the market, and this is my happiness. First, you can always have a mathematical definition of what happiness is holistic. And here you can use the definition of the German philosopher Kant, who says that something can be universal right if you apply it everywhere, it brings to the happiness of everybody. But if you put in this machine, I want to kill my neighbor, so let's say so. If everybody wants to kill his neighbor, what happens? It does not work. The computer will easily tell you that it does not work. So, but what is more important is that people rarely vote for the crazy result. They normally vote for good ideas If the Germans knew what would be the end of the war, if they knew about the concentration camps, if they knew about the partition of Germany, they would never vote for Hitler. Because our computer would tell them, you will have destroyed country, you will have divided Berlin, you will have half of your country in the Soviet bloc, half of your country semi-occupied, etc., 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 and you will be the most humiliated nation after the Second World War for decades ahead. They would never vote for this. The people don't know the consequences of their vote. This is the biggest problem. And what our democracy is telling them, this will be the consequences.
So do historians or political scientists help the coders? Because you could have someone who thinks something will make them happy, but if they don't know the historical mistakes, then they wouldn't know those outcomes down the road. So would the coding have to be like a group of people with different information to help to write the algorithm? Or who would be in charge of determining, like who would program the mistakes of the last thousands of years into it? Like what professionals?
What is the question?
Who would program the algorithm? Because we might all think like we want to use our F-16s to attack somebody, but someone who knew better and saw where that's led in the past could program differently. So who do we trust with like the community memory, the historical memory, to make the program?
The program will be made by programmers.
But the information that the programmers have to program into the computer, I think is what she's asking.
You have huge database. You have huge database, and what we didn't talk about this, but what is the biggest charm of 2017 that we have big data. The big data is a miracle. The big data can tell you everything, including the big data can tell you. I will give you just an example because I was just focused on a book on the big data. The big data can predict things that are unthinkable. For example, the big data can easily tell when you open the car and sit on your seat. The big data can tell you is it you or not you. The big data can, for example, predict when a woman is pregnant, and with very good precision in which week of pregnancy. Because what they say, Google knows that you're buying, for example, folic acid from the apothecary, and Google knows that women buy folic acid normally at, say, the 5th or 10th week of their pregnancy. So Google can tell you, seeing from your credit card, that you are buying this stuff from the apothecary, with what is the when you are expected to deliver. Things are very well known, and the future is very well predictable. And if you put everything into this big data, you will know what will happen if you do this or do that. This is what iDemocracy is telling you what to do, and it will tell you what not to do if you don't want such and such consequences. This is like a crystal ball telling you the future. And you can easily choose between your good and your poor, miserable future. And among all possible futures, to choose the best.
This isn't a particular concern of mine, but I'm interested if amongst you and your team you've discussed about when the machines take over. When the machines vote for themselves. I'm not concerned about that personally. I just was wondering, is that, like, I'm just interested to hear how your team is anyone on the team concerned about that? Or how has that discussion gone in the team?
We're at a very early stage. The first big question is what is human and what is machine. We shall not know in a few years from now. It will be not so easy to distinguish between humans and machines. We ourselves will be implanted with a lot of machines, and a lot of machines will be upgraded with our brains or our bodies or our parts. So there is a sort of a convergence between humans and machines, and frankly speaking, I'm not ready to answer to this. This is beyond this theory.
So as teachers, we're sometimes subject to big data. We're measured sometimes based on test scores and given ratings. And those ratings don't take into account things like the social emotional impact in the classroom, things that are much harder to measure and to quantify. I'm just wondering how that fits into this idea. What do we do with things that are very hard to measure?
Well, keep in mind that you always have to keep in mind the equivalence between piloting and governing. The people on the plane could be very emotional. Someone can, they for example can see that there is fire on the left wing, and all of them can decide to move on the right hand side of the board, which is not good for the plane. This is not good. So you have to keep the emotions down, and you have to follow the protocols which the pilot has as his instructions. Sit on your place, and it is my job to take you down. Your emotions do not help me, and moreover, they do not help you. Emotions have to be taken out of this. They're counterproductive.
So in the happiness index, I don't know a lot about what are all the things that make up the happiness index, but isn't there an aspect of joy and, because I know there's a lot of things that are measurable, like safety and housing and pensions and making sure you have access to education and other things, but are there things that are sort of a little harder to quantify in the happiness index, like just like I'm like really happy, which is like I don't know how you quantify. So I mean, aren't there parts of that happiness index that are emotional, or is it all just completely quantifiable?
You can put different factors. As I mentioned in the beginning, there are some things which are important for Bhutan and some other things that are important for my constituency in Burgas at the Black Sea. So they will have different notions, different definitions of happiness. But as I told you, I'm coming from mathematics, and mathematics and sciences as a whole can prove that everything is quantifiable. Even love is quantifiable. Emotions are quantifiable. Everything is a number, or you can project it as a number. And to deal with numbers is much easier than to deal with abstract notions.
Yeah, but don't how societies define those emotions change from place to place?
Yes?
Because in Bhutan, they measure happiness not just from happiness, but they also, they think about death every day, and that's part of why they're so happy. It's very, very opposite from in America, for example. So wouldn't that have to be adjusted for every different country or relation?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. If you have different notion of happiness, you have a different way to define this number. In Bhutan, for example, they have a national survey of several thousand questions, which they ask every second year. Maybe my data is old, but it gives some impression of what I saw there. They have national survey, surveying hundreds and thousands of people, asking hundreds of questions, making their tables and giving recommendations of what to be improved on next year in order for the people to feel happier. And the happiest people in Bhutan with the highest number of happiness, these are the monks in the Buddhist temples. They are the happiest people in this country. For example, in Bhutan, they very much believe that they have to wear their national dressing, costumes. They don't change it with the European style of dressing. You saw the guy. This guy. I'm with a European shirt, which is similar to his, but this is his original national costume. And they go dressed like that. Almost every man on the street is like this. They very much believe that keeping close to their origins makes them very happy. Or also they believe that if they help each other, this makes them happy. If one Bhutanese wants to build a house, all of his neighborhood is coming to help him to lay the concrete, and they build a house together, and they believe that keeping each other together as a family, as a group, as a constituency, this makes them happier. And the Prime Minister of Bhutan has signed an order forbidding the ministers to work on weekend. He tells them, I know that you have a lot to work, you have huge paper piles to do, but you must stay at home on the weekend, because to stay with your family is part of your happiness. And if you as ministers do not give example for happiness, how do you want to guarantee the happiness for the rest of the country?
When do you transition from the simulator to real life application? Like, hooray, I've passed the test and I'm the best. Now I get to be in charge of things and make decisions on my own, or does everything constantly run through the computer program?
It could work both ways. It could work both ways. It will be a matter of national decision. Someone can say, okay, we put you in charge for 4 years. You stay here for 4 years, but our autopilot will be your supervisor. Because our autopilot can also detect if you're not making errors. But it could be for a shorter period. I cannot give universal prescription. This is also something which is subject to voting in the respective constituency.
So, with the automated cars, I'm thinking about this. In the United States, they've done a lot of studies showing that they're safer, the automated cars, but people do not want them. They are scared of them. They think they're going to be hacked. The computers freak them out. So how do we get, if this is so good for the world and it's going to be better, like the automated cars are, how do you propose getting people on board, getting them excited about it, getting them okay with it?
I'm sure that people were very much scared to go on the plane in the beginning. It is the same. Now you can, remember, try to check how many people were ready to try the plane in the beginning, when the plane appeared as a vehicle, and try to compare it with the number of passengers that we have today. The number of passengers is skyrocketing. Why? Because the people are understanding, they're learning. You cannot expect that the people are born educated, but you have to educate them.
I'm wondering, I work in psychology, and even though there's subjective ideas about happiness, like I'm thinking on the biological level about how, like, there's really literally two things that make people happy. There's these two chemicals. So would like it all be based on what people think will make them happy, or would there be a neurological component to the programming at all?
No, for the beginning, I think that everything goes from simpler to more complex.
Okay.
So the neurological component, if at all, will come on a later stage.
Thank you.
Is there any limited version of this that exists today in any corporation, thing in a very primitive form is currently operating, do you know?
IBM supercomputer Watson. The name of the computer, this whole project is Watson, and the CEO of IBM, after launching the project, said that this is a proof that in not very distant future, all major decisions will be taken assisted by such database analytics. The Tesla self-driving machines is another example, but maybe there are many. For example, a very limited version of this, very limited, very narrow. This is the program for playing chess. There is a program for playing chess. In my youth, I was chess player. And I stopped playing chess when I started doing mathematics. Why? Because mathematics told me that the chess is a game which is algorithmic game, and you can have mathematical algorithm which brings you to the success. And this was the moment when the chess became, so to say, boring to me. And today, I joined the Faculty of Mathematics and Computer Sciences in 1974, and since then probably I stopped playing chess. And today, how many years later? 40? 40 years later, 43 years later, we have the proof that indeed machine is better than man in playing chess. And playing chess is a very simple algorithm, very simple approximation of governing a country. You have the aim, you know what you want to do, and the machine is telling you how to reach the end. This same story could be illustrated not with piloting, but with something much simpler, which is playing chess. And if we talk to children, we can exemplify with playing chess. But when we talk to teachers, we need to use the better approximation, which is piloting.
So didn't you just bring up an interesting point as yourself as proof that you enjoyed playing chess? It made you happy when you didn't know that the machine could do it better than you could?
Yes, ignorance sometimes brings happiness. But I'm always trying to avoid this happiness. And I'm always thankful to someone who is fingering at my ignorance. I want to improve myself. I do not pretend that I succeed, but I want very much.
Do you think that you or Watson, the computer, are more creative?
I don't know. This is a question to which I don't have an answer. I have never compared myself with such a computer. Maybe there are people for whom I can for sure say that they're more creative than Watson. For example, Stephen Hawking, from my point of view, is more creative than Watson at this level. This may be not the case for me. But one day, I believe that computers would become equally creative to man. Actually, there is a theorem that everything that can be calculated by man can be calculated by computer. The question, and there are different definitions of computers. There are Turing machines, post machines, whatever other machines. And there is a theorem which proves that each of these computers are calculating the same thing. And there is a hypothesis which is difficult to be proven, but exists decades now, that whatever could be proven by man could be is proven by computer, provable by computer. But for creativity, this is something more tricky. And I'll come back to your first question, and I don't have definition of creativity. Good. Well,
So thank you so much. That was fascinating. Probably we were the witnesses of the new type of global governance. So we can feel privileged, and we have a lot to think about. We can discuss a bit after this session over a cup of coffee.
I'm thankful. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share this with you. This is really very important for us to have the feedback from this theory. And my team, which is presented here, Angel with the camera and Vila with the presenting here, are very thankful for your attention and for your ideas, which certainly will help us improve this thing. One thing that comes to my mind, Eva, is that we should have back the formula. The formula is something, I made a presentation of this thing on TEDx talk. Do you know this TEDx?
Yes.
I was invited to TEDx in Dijon, France. You can see it on YouTube. In TEDx, of course, you have always the pressure of time. They give you 18 minutes to present, so that's why we had to take some important elements out. And it comes to my mind that we have to return back the formula, the mathematical formula, which is will give a good illustration when you don't have the pressure of time. Thank you.
Thank you.